Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Look, I am absolutely thrilled you're tuning in because today we're tackling something that affects literally every single one of us, usually on a daily basis. We're going to unpack a super fascinating analysis by Dr. Poonam Chand Khatari. Now, most of us, we just think of anger as an emotion. It's a temporary mood, right? A passing storm. But Dr. Khatari frames it entirely differently. He diagnoses anger not just as a feeling, but as a severe, self-destructive disease. It's an ailment of the mind that completely wrecks us from the inside out. So let's dive right in and see exactly how this ancient Ayurvedic perspective breaks down the root causes of our rage, and more importantly, how we can actually cure it. Okay, just listen to this quote for a second. He who has lit the fire of anger in his heart, what need does he have for a funeral pyre? Wow. I mean, what a striking, powerful image, right? Dr. Khatri uses these incredibly vivid metaphors to describe what we're actually doing to ourselves when we get mad. He compares holding on to anger to keeping a venomous, deadly snake tucked right inside your sleeve, or watching around all day with a razor-sharp knife tied tightly against your stomach. It is absolute self-sabotage. The author is essentially telling us, if you let anger burn inside you, you are burning yourself alive. You don't even need a funeral pyre. The destruction is already happening. So if we're dealing with a deadly disease here, what do the early warning signs look like? Well, what are the daily symptoms of this disease? Let's get specific, because the text gets highly relatable here. These are the everyday triggers that just make our blood absolutely boil. A son who just won't listen. Your wife deciding to cook dal for dinner when you specifically really wanted bangan, eggplant. A junior colleague getting promoted and snagging the high chair at work. A younger brother throwing a massive feast without even consulting you. A customer walking into your shop and audaciously offering exactly half the fixed price, or even getting into these heated, furious debates over subtle religious differences, like Vaishnava versus Shaiva traditions. I want you to think about your own life for a second. We've all got our own version of dal instead of bangan, haven't we? We all have these minor infractions that trigger massive, explosive internal reactions. Now, the truly fascinating part is the underlying diagnosis. Why do those tiny triggers make us so furious? Dr. Khatri points to a single, profound root cause: ignorance. And he doesn't mean a lack of book smarts here. He means a deeply flawed, ignorant perception of our own position in the world relative to everyone else. Take the example of the disobedient son. A father gets incredibly angry because, in his ignorance, he views his son as his literal property, like his personal estate or a servant who must obey him. When the reality of the son having his own free will clashes with the father's ignorant assumption of ownership, boom, that friction sparks the fire of anger. And this brings us to a really core concept from the text. The author calls this the imperialist mindset. It's basically this false, hidden belief that absolutely everyone around you must obey your commands and act exactly according to your wishes. It's a secret expectation we harbor deep down. We basically walk around like little emperors, subconsciously thinking the whole world is our empire and everyone in it is our subject. And when the world inevitably doesn't comply, when the customer haggles, when dinner is wrong, when people have different opinions, we feel personally attacked. This mindset turns us into these frustrated dictators, perpetually angry because reality simply refuses to bend to our unspoken demands. And honestly, this next story brilliantly illustrates the sheer absurdity of the imperialist mindset. Dr. Khatri uses a really specific anecdote about a grandfather and a grandson. So the grandson loves playing kabaddi. He has a genuine, real passion for it. But the grandfather, acting as the ultimate dictator of the household, tries to force him to play football instead. Why? Just because the grandfather thinks his way is the only right way, and his authority must be absolute. It's completely irrational. Trying to micromanage a kid's game is a perfect microexample of this overarching disease. You are essentially demanding that another human being surrender their free will entirely just to satisfy your own ego. Let's just pause for a second and really ask ourselves, who gave us the right to make everyone act according to our wishes? Seriously, think about it. If we demand the right to live our lives the way we want, why on earth wouldn't other people have that exact same right? When we meet someone who disagrees with us, we instantly see them as an enemy. But why? They are just exercising the same fundamental right to an opinion that we claim for ourselves. Confronting this mirror, really realizing that we hold zero special divine authority over others, is the absolute first major step in curing the disease of anger. So, how do we shift to preventative care? Well, if the imperialist mindset is the disease, the cure is understanding how society actually functions. The reality is, society runs on compromise. It does not run on absolute control. Even if you're the patriarch, or the head of a household, or the CEO of a company, your true duty isn't to micromanage every single detail of everyone's lives. Your role is to guide the ethics, to manage the economy, to look after the broader well-being. It's about introducing people to the right path with love and goodwill, not forcing them down it at gunpoint. When you let go of that desperate need for total control, you remove the friction. Where there is no demand for an empire, the war of anger naturally just ceases. Let's take this a step further, because Dr. Khatri identifies a second, equally dangerous root cause of anger: the illusion of perfect knowledge. This is that incredibly arrogant and frankly foolish belief that whatever partial, fragmented knowledge we happen to possess is the absolute, unquestionable, complete truth. It's the assumption that our specific perspective is the only correct one, and anyone who sees it differently isn't just wrong, they're offensively wrong. This illusion pretty much guarantees that you are going to be constantly fighting with the world. Consider this comparison from the text. On one hand, you have the mindset of a dedicated scientist. A scientist might spend 20 years painstakingly researching a theory, but the exact moment new evidence proves them wrong, they willingly discard 2 decades of work and change their mind. They respect the vast, infinite ocean of knowledge. On the other hand, you have the fool. The fool holds onto a tiny, microscopic fraction of knowledge and guards it furiously, treating it as absolute truth. The text even mentions people getting furiously angry, arguing over the exact elements that make up the human body. The author notes that people locked in this kind of foolishness shouldn't even make us angry. Honestly, we should pity them. True wisdom and lasting peace comes from seeing yourself as a humble, curious traveler on the path of knowledge, definitely not the ultimate authority. Immediate first aid for anger. Okay, so what happens in the heat of the moment when that fire is already lit? Let's open up Dr. Khatri's emergency first aid kit. All right, here are the very first steps in the acute treatment protocol. Step 1, make a vow. Write down, I will not let my enemy, anger, near me, and I will fight it the moment it arrives. Hang that up somewhere highly visible so you see it all day. When anger hits, remember that vow instantly. Step 2 is where it gets, well, very physical. The author literally suggests slapping your own cheeks to physically jolt your ego and remind yourself that you are breaking your vow. But if slapping yourself isn't exactly your style, the alternative is profound, strict silence. The text uses this great phrase, no bamboo, no flute. If you don't supply the fuel, the fire cannot burn. If you keep your mouth shut, the bitter, angry words can't escape, the fight can't escalate, and the anger, left completely without oxygen, will eventually extinguish itself. Continuing with the physical first aid, we have these next 2 steps. First, drink a full glass of cold water. Dr. Khatri calls this an explicit Ayurvedic treatment. Because anger literally heats up the brain and the body, it genuinely raises your physical temperature. The cold water acts to rapidly cool the system back down. Second, physically remove yourself from the environment. Just leave the room. Go do a completely different activity. By shifting your physical location and your physical actions, you force your mind to shift its gears. You break that immediate hypnotic focus on whatever it was that just triggered you. Finally, for those who are looking for a deeper mental shift during an acute attack of anger, the author provides one highly tested spiritual remedy, chanting the Gayatri mantra. The absolute second the anger rises, you immediately begin to chant. And the purpose here isn't just religious, it's intensely psychological. By forcing your mind to concentrate on a complex, spiritually uplifting chant, you are completely hijacking your brain's processing power. You are physically dragging your attention away from the infuriating trigger and redirecting it towards something pure and stabilizing. It's a highly tested method to instantly break that cycle of rage. So I want to leave you with this one question to ponder. If you let go of the inner dictator today, what fuel is left to burn your heart tomorrow? We started this explainer with the image of anger as a funeral pyre burning right in your chest. Through Dr. Khatri's analysis, we've seen that the wood feeding that fire is our own ignorance, our imperialist demands on others, and our arrogant illusion of knowing it all. But if you take the steps to cure the disease, if you realize society requires compromise, if you stay humble in your knowledge, and if you use these Ayurvedic first aid techniques to stop the sparks, the fire simply goes out. You take back your peace. What happens to your stress, your health, and your relationships if you finally abdicate the throne of that inner dictator? Think about it. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep growing, and I'll see you next time.